By the way, too, before we start live streaming, I've been asked to announce to make sure today and tomorrow the op shop is open till 4 o'clock. So they'd love to see you over there. Yeah, it's good. It's good price. Yeah. So let me know when you're ready, Ralph. Put your thumb up when you're ready. Okay. Well, we'll get into our next talk. This is one that's really interested me, and I think it'll interest you because it's just something that not a lot of people know about. It's breathing techniques. And I got this from a book called The Oxygen Advantage. This man, Patrick McKeon, he had asthma. It says here, many people are searching for good health. The principles he follows and teaches is from Dr. Batico. By applying these principles, he experienced immediate relief from his asthmatic symptoms. And he trained under Dr. Batico and since then has authored 7 books and has worked with thousands of people. I'm going to talk to you about this particular way of breathing, which I want to share with you. Now, I put this out and researched. If you want to go back to find some research, I put this in Back to Eden newsletter number 79. Plus, I also have got this book, and I love it. And this one's a book called Breath by James Nestor. And what he says is that most people breathe in a way that is caused anxiety, stress, and fatigue. And the first things we need to learn is to breathe in and out through our noses, not breathe through our mouth. There will be times when you use your mouth for breathing, but it's not the primary focus is to breathe through the nose most of the time. And you look at this, what's happening when little babies, they say in countries where a baby like that on the left, if a parent knows this, they will go and they'll put a little cushion under that baby's chin to keep that mouth shut. And so it's like they teach the baby to sleep with its mouth closed. Now that is going to cause severe health problems in that child. Now I didn't know this. I didn't know it. But this is in that book, the second book, by Breath. James Nestor says, hundreds of skulls that they say he looked through hundreds of skulls that range from 200 to thousands of years old. They were studied and reveal how people used to look and breathe. He said that nasal apertures were twice as large as they are today. All had straight teeth. They very likely never snored, had sleep apnea or sinusitis or other chronic respiratory problems. But all modern skulls showed opposite growth patterns and some degree of crooked teeth. Why? You look at the crooked teeth in some people nowadays. Because nowadays, people don't chew their food like they used to. Our soft diet stunts bone development in our dental arches and sinus cavity, leading to chronic nasal congestion. And looking at the skulls, they see they had a completely different facial structure and no crowded teeth. And they say that modern-day mouth breathers, people who eat soft food, white bread, sweetened fruit juices, canned vegetables, etc., have their mouths so underdeveloped they cannot accommodate 32 permanent teeth. And so they have to take out their wisdom teeth. Now, modern-day breathers, they're underdeveloped. They have a peculiar way they have. Their bottom part of their faces slope back, because their bones don't grow quickly. Now, here are some signs that you are breathing through your mouth, especially at night. I'll talk about that in a minute. Snoring, sleep apnea, fatigue or never feeling truly rested after sleep, having focus problems, dry mouth, bad breath, sore or hoarse throat, Dark circles under the eyes are other signs of chronically poor sleep. Okay, so now this is interesting. The biggest obstacle for your health and fitness is rarely identified. It's called chronic overbreathing. We can breathe 2 or 3 times more air than required without knowing it. We assume the body automatically knows how much air it needs at all times, but it's not the case. This process of breathing has been warped by chronic stress, sedentary life, unhealthy diets, overheated homes, and lack of fitness. All of these contribute to poor breathing habits. They in turn contribute to lethargy, weight gain, sleeping problems, respiratory conditions, and heart disease. Now, this is a most interesting chart. This came out of the book. They said in the normal, this is how many breaths per minute a person takes. Now, if you lived in 1929, the average person breathed 4.9 times a minute. 1939 it increased a bit, went back in 4.6, but in 1950s it went to 6.9, 1980s 7.8, 90s to 96 12 times, 97 11 back to 12 and 12. Now this is really an interesting chart because we did this. I recently took this class, and if you remember that you were here, Judy, weren't you? And in the class, we have a lady sitting there. And she got all excited when she saw this. And I made a comment, and I said, look, in 2000, they said average 12. But I said it could be more now. And she put her hand up, and she said, I can't, I've got to say something. She said, I teach breathing. She's got a contract with the Defence Department to go in and teach breathing to these are men from the army and women from the army. It's a very stressful week. They have they've got some very big exams in that week. And she goes in there and she teaches them to relax, to breathe properly. And she said one of the things she does is she teaches them how many breaths are they taking a minute. And you stop and think, how many breaths do you take a minute? Have you ever counted them? Just breathe normally. You'll find most people 12, 15 times a minute. Now that is actually chronic overbreathing. And she said in the army when she said regularly, she said it is up 20s. She said sometimes it's even in the 2024. What does this do to our body? No, and she said, and I went on here and I said, the minute, how many breaths per minute of chronic disease? I'm not going to read them all out because I haven't got time, but you can see them there. Can you see that if you've got certain diseases, you breathe more times than you should be breathing? Here are some more. So, and in obese patients, they get 15.3 to 20 breaths a minute. So normally we should be going from 10, well, they said normal is 10 to 12. And then there's another state, and this it says all chronic pain, suffering and disease are caused by lack of oxygen at the cell level. Now, if we're breathing so many times per minute, how come we're not full of oxygen in our cell level? Well, this man, James Nestor, decided to do an experiment. He wanted to know whether stuffy noses and all these things, whether they're normal. So what he and his friend did, they did it, it's like it was a proper science experiment. It says they used silicone plugs to block their nostrils. He and a friend breathed only through their mouths for 10 days. After this, for the next 10 days after that, they would just nasal breathe. They ate, they exercised and slept as usual, then compared the results of mouth breathing versus nasal breathing. They measured blood gases, inflammatory markers, hormone levels, pulmonary functions, plus more. They wanted to know whether there is a difference. Well, after one night, their snoring increased to 75 minutes. That was one man, and the other man was to 4 hours and 10 minutes in one night. They had a 4-fold increase in sleep apnea, and they woke with a dry tongue and mouth and irritation of the throat. Now, that was in the morning. And he said he had no idea this experiment was going to be so damaging to his body. He went from snoring a couple of minutes a night to within 3 days was snoring for hours a night. He developed sleep apnea. His stress levels were off the chart. His nervous system was a mess. He had a whole home lab at his house, and they were testing themselves 3 times a day, every day. Even looking at his blood glucose was affected. He felt awful. He felt fatigued. His snoring, sleep apnea, and his athletic performance really decreased. Halfway into his experiment, his blood pressure rose by an average of 13 points compared to before. Heart rate variability plummeted, suggesting his body was in stress. Pulse increased, body temperatures decreased, mental clarity was very low, and they felt awful. After 10 days, this is their finding, their snoring increased 4,820%. They suffered a faster pulse rate, a blood pressure increased 13 points, suffered sleep apnea, they had 25 apnea events a night, caused body to lose 40% more water, and this is why you wake up feeling parched and dry, because you're breathing out so much through your mouth. After 10 days, you'd think the moisture loss would be decrease the need to urinate, but the opposite was true. They found it 6 times harder to balance on one leg. Amazing. Stress levels increased, sugar cravings increased. They found it hard to concentrate. And he said, once he took the plugs out, the snoring disappeared, the sleep apnea disappeared, the nervous system came back into balance, completely transformed by just changing the pathway through which he breathed. And he actually said afterwards, he actually didn't realise that this was going to be such a dangerous experiment, because he knows that if he would have kept on a few more days, it could have given him irreversible damage. He didn't realise that. And by the way, I'm just going to, while I'm thinking of it, I'll just go back to that lady who I said, she taught breathing. She said she is hooked on this sort of breathing. And she breathes this way, which I'm going to tell you about in a minute, for an hour a day. And she said her pulse rate now, and she's in her late 60s, her pulse rate now is 45 or 46. She has the pulse rate of an athlete. She said her mental clarity is so clear. And she said she has mental clarity. What else was there? Just something that was just gone from my mind. She sleeps so deeply. She said she'll go to sleep at night. She lies down on the pillow, and within very, very short time, she's asleep. She's sleeping so soundly. She said she has very vivid dreams, and then she wakes up early. She doesn't get up to urinate during the night, and she's like in her 60s, 68. And I thought to myself, wow, this is very interesting. But when she said how clear she's thinking in her brain. And one other class that I was doing when I was doing this some years ago, there was a man who had come out of the martial arts. And he said when he was in martial arts, he was deep breathing or doing breathing exercises for 1 to 2 hours a day. And he said he could not believe how fantastic he felt. And so what I'm saying is that it's much deeper than we think about. The nose has many functions. It filters, humidifies, pressurizes, and conditions air. It triggers different hormones to flood our bodies and to the stages of a women's cycle. It lowers blood pressure. For those of you who've got high blood pressure, are you sleeping with your mouth open at night? I'll get to that in a minute, right? It monitors heart rate. It helps store memories. And this is absolutely amazing. The nose actually has erectile tissue like men's and women's genitals and is covered in that same tissue. So when one area gets stimulated, the nose will become stimulated as well. Oh, I won't comment on that. Now, they said the ideal breathing rate is 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. Will take 5.5 litres of water. And they found that blood to the brain increased and the body entered this state of balance in which all of the organs of the system worked in harmony with other. Okay, so if you're breathing in 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out, that is 11 seconds. Okay, 11, that's 5.5 minutes, about 5.5 minutes, 5.5 times a minute. And yet I said to you, most people are breathing, you count your breath, you'll find it's probably about 12, 15 times a minute. That is over-breathing. That's causing us problem. Remember I said to that chart, right back in 1929, they were only breathing 4.9 times a minute? Okay, so getting back onto this. Now, James Nestor says that they looked at athletes, and the moment the athletes were performing with their nose, breathing through their noses and keeping their mouth shut, they actually had much, much better results. And they found that all athletes, with the exception of swimming, which is obvious, but they did state it, they had a lower heart rate, they gained more oxygen, even though they breathed less. They gained their performance, endurance, and recovery. Now, there was a man, an Emil Zatopek, he was a Czech, in 1952 Olympics. He broke records, developed a method of breathing less, and won gold medals. And it describes how it's done in that book. But what he did, and then later on he also went into the marathon on the same Olympic Games without even training, and he won it. Why? He was training with his mouth, and he was holding his breath while he was training. And actually it was quite interesting. And look, I'm not going to go into that here, but that breath book is really well worth reading. Rhesus monkeys. Scientists plugged up the nostrils of monkeys for 2 years. The animals' dental arches, the angle of their chins, the length of their faces, the gaping mouths changed the shape of their mouth. Now, this is the same as that boy. And you'll find children who do mouth breathing all get that same look on their faces. Mouth breathing changes the physical shape and transforms airways in the worst. After experiment ended, 6 months later, the monkeys' faces returned to their former shape. Okay, incorrect breathing greatly decreases respiratory function, which in turn decreases energy levels in the body and our ability to exhale toxins. And it can lead to many health problems such as high blood pressure, insomnia, some forms of cancer. And remember, Otto Warburg won a Nobel Prize for determining that only oxygen-starved cells will mutate and become cancerous. That is ADHD. That's another thing, that kids who are breathing through their mouth at night, they found that they're more likely to have ADHD. Nitric oxide. This is a very interesting one because nitric oxide is a gas and it's found inside the nasal cavity, and it combats harmful bacteria and viruses in our body. It regulates blood pressure, lowers cholesterol, boosts the immune system, helps us keep cancer free. It keeps the arteries young and healthy and flexible, prevents clogging of the arteries with plaque and clots. It dilutes smooth muscle layer, embeds in the airways that transfer oxygen from the lungs. So got it? We're not going to have plaque in our arteries if we're doing this. Nasal breathing boosts nitric oxide 6 times. It plays a significant role in the blood flow and erection of the penis. And you'll find nowadays a lot of men are using nitric oxide as an addition because to get an erection in their penis. You don't get this gas when we mouth breathe. They found that, they discovered that because it's one of the effects, that this nitric oxide here, you can buy it. You buy it from the chemist or wherever, health food shop. Symptoms of a low nitric oxide level include high blood pressure, memory issues, low stamina, and erectile dysfunction. So mouth breathing versus nose breathing. So how do we do it? So we have to realize when we're breathing in and out, we're usually breathing in, and it's good to breathe out through your nose as well, although sometimes some of the breathing exercises using breathing out through your mouth, sometimes going in and out through your mouth. But if you breathe in and out through your nose, you're going to pick up that little bit of nitric oxide that is there, and it'll go in and distribute in your body. That's what we need. And if we're not getting nitric oxide, well, that's why we're getting so many health problems. We have to have correct breathing. The breathing we have to do has to go that way and that way. Our lungs have to be breathing both ways, expanding both ways. Now, this is interesting here. Nose breathing improves arterial oxygenation uptake by 10 to 20%. So nose breathing improves oxygenation of the blood. Mouth breathing, of course, is going to reduce it. There is an oxygen paradox. The harder you breathe, the less oxygen that's delivered to the cells. In order for oxygen to be delivered to the cell, you need, now listen to the word, carbon dioxide. In order for the oxygen to be delivered to the cell, you need carbon dioxide. Got it? But if you breathe too hard or too many and you offload carbon dioxide, you lose it from the lungs and reduce it to the blood, it in the blood through the lungs. So we're not getting oxygen into our cells. If we're breathing, we need carbon dioxide to do that. So if we're breathing too much, we're getting rid of this carbon dioxide, so the oxygen is not going into our cells. And more on that. The loss of carbon dioxide in the blood causes blood vessels to constrict, and the red blood cells hold on to oxygen when there's a reduced pressure in carbon dioxide. So ultimately, it's your breathing which determines the pressure of carbon dioxide in the blood. And you need optimum amount of carbon dioxide to allow the oxygen to be released from the red blood cells to the cells. And if you increase carbon dioxide, brain cells are calmed. In other words, the brain can regulate its own excitability through our breath. We can't say that oxygen is good and carbon dioxide is bad. In order to properly really harness oxygen and to utilize oxygen, we need carbon dioxide. So when we breathe out too much and too much breathing, we're breathing out too much carbon dioxide. So the idea is to breathe in and out through your nose. Now this here is from this book here, and he was talking about the lung capacity is very important. He's talking about your BOLT score, body oxygen level test. So what he says, you hold your breath, you breathe in and out normally. And then after you breathe out, you pinch your nose shut, and you can see how many steps you take before you feel like you want to get your body you need to release it and get oxygen back into your body. That score, how many steps you take, determine how fit you are. And it tells if your breathing level is optimal or dysfunctional. It shows your carbon dioxide tolerance. It shows your oxygen extraction and utilization efficiency. It is that, by the way, that lady who I was telling you about it, she had a very good score. She beat everyone in the whole class. Way. We did this experiment. And so she beat everyone in the class. So how do you determine your BOLT score? You breathe in and out through your nose normally. Hold your nose after out. You got it? You breathe in. Then after the out breath, you hold your nose, you pinch it shut. You count the seconds you can hold your breath until you get a desire to take a breath. You let go of your nose and you take a calm breath through your nose. So you don't get to the stage where you're really, you're breathing in dramatically. It's got to be a soft breath. Okay, so if you are gasping for air, you have held your breath too long. The lower the BOLT score, the greater the degree of breathlessness during physical exercise. Actually, I don't have time to do it, but I would like to experiment. So what you do is you do a bit in and out. After and out, pinch your nose, and we'll do it. We'll take time out. Okay, we'll just breathe in, out, and I will count up to, see how long you can count up before you want to get your breathing back to normal. Okay, so I've got a second hand on my watch here. Okay, so breathe in, out, in, out. Now pinch your nose now. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58. Wow. What about you boys? You didn't try it. 45. Okay. See, if you're fitter, you'll do it. Okay, but now what happens? Okay, below 25 is dysfunctional breathing. 40 or more correlates with high energy levels. Okay, so we got to do it. Okay? Each time you improve your BOLT score by 5, you have more energy. So you can how do you do it? By breathing exercises. So deep breathing for health is a myth. This is not a sign of health, but it doesn't get more oxygen into your cells. Remember, that's why. We need oxygen for health, but most people are oxygen saturated and have levels between 95 and 99 at rest. And that's true. I know, because if I've got one of these meters, if I go and put it on my finger, I've got plenty of oxygen in my body. But the point is, we don't have oxygen in our cells. Why don't we have it in our cells? Because we're losing too much carbon dioxide. The ratio of oxygen and carbon dioxide will drive it into our cells. Normal breathing, should be the breathing, but the one on the right is normally what people do. Okay, so what regulates breathing and volume? It's the carbon dioxide. Brain receptors monitor carbon dioxide and oxygen in your blood along with the pH levels. When the level of carbon dioxide increase above a certain threshold, the receptors in the brain stimulate breathing to get rid of the excess carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide is not a waste gas, but it is key to the effective oxygen delivery to your cells. And we retain some carbon dioxide after an exhale. Optimal health and breathing relies on retaining the correct amount of carbon dioxide in our bodies. Red blood cells have hemoglobin levels which carry oxygen and deliver it from the blood to the cells of your body, which is orchestrated by the acidity or alkalinity of blood. All is determined by the amount of carbon dioxide. And when carbon dioxide levels are higher, oxygen is dropped off into our cells. So we need more carbon dioxide. And most of us are breathing it off too much. That's the problem. Now, what happens when we really take a good deep breath? This actually reduces oxygen delivery to our cells and to our brain and to our liver and to hormone-producing glands, intestines, hearts, muscle, everything. So you got to remember, I just said that our brain uses 20% of the oxygen that we're taking in. So if we're living in an oxygen-depleted body, we're not getting enough oxygen to our brain, and this is causing us getting a fuzzy brain, foggy mind. Yes?
So that's why if you have someone who's hysterical, you're advised to put a bag over.
Yes, that's right. I'll just repeat that. So that's why if we've got somebody hysterical, we put a bag over their mouth. Yeah. Why do humans overbreathe? Okay. Chronic stress, they believe, modern sedentary lifestyle, and your modern diet, which gives you acid loads in food. And I have no idea if there's others. I don't know. But the keys to healthy breathing: light, not deep; slow, not fast; nasal, not mouth; diaphragmatic, not chest. Unhealthy breathing is you have a low Bolt score, but you have optimal breathing is 4 to 9 times a minute with a 60 Bolt score. Wow. And yet some people have problems because they have, I can't breathe properly because my nose is blocked up. Okay, breathe in, then exhale through the nose, then pitch the nose shut. Then count how many that's for the nose. That's for the nose unblocking. Okay, count how many paces you can hold your breath with a medium to strong air shortage without overdoing it. When you resume breathing, do so through the nose. The first breath will be bigger than normal, but make sure you calm your breathing as soon as possible by suppressing your second and third breaths. You should be able to recover normal breathing within 2 or 3 breaths. If your breathing is erratic or heavier than usual, you've held your breath too long. And wait a minute or 2 before repeating the breath hold. Repeat a total of 6 repetitions until nose is decongested. The objective is to be able to walk 80 to 100 paces using the breath after holding the breath after an exhalation. You build yourself up to do this. A really good athlete has a Bolt score of about 25 to 30 seconds, and the upper tolerance of their breathlessness is about 60 to 70 steps. But you've got to work up to this. And remember, if you've got a clogged nose, the more you use the nose, the better it works. And there is a saying, use it or you lose it. And if you snore, you need to address mouth breathing. And do I snore? Well, I don't think I snore, but when Peter would say to me, sometimes you breathe very heavy and deep through your mouth. Not all the time. So I'll tell you what I do in a minute. Deep sleep is very important for repair of the human body. Remember I told you that lady said how she goes into such a deep sleep because she has had this breathing? She's practiced it for an hour a day. We're all aware of the lymphatic system in terms of the body's natural sewage waste disposal system to get rid of waste from the body. But in the brain there is what's called the glymphatic system, and that's when the waste is mopped up. This is when the brain repairs, cleanses or restores itself, but it only happens during very deep sleep. To slow down your breathing to the point that you get a slight air hunger, this is to induce sleep, and maintain that slow breathing for 15 to 20 minutes before you go to sleep. Place one hand on the chest, one hand just above the diaphragm, and feel the diaphragm move. The whole objective is to really slow down your breathing. To the point that you feel a need for air. And it gets you drowsy. So what you do is carbon dioxide will build up in your blood. As you get more oxygen, gets released from the blood to the cells, and you get more drowsy when you breathe this way. Now there's certain ways that I'm going to share with you that you can do breathing exercises. This one in here is 5-5-5. What does it mean by that? Breathe in through your nose, breathe out through your nose, pinch your nose and hold it for 5. That's an excellent exercise. That's for increased energy. Got it? To maintain body temperature, you really need to be breathing through your nose. And if you're getting cold, it's a sign that you are actually breathing through your mouth. You need to breathe through your nose. This is what I like. This one helps in better brain function. It increases airflow through the right nostril, is correlated to increased left brain, facts and logic, activity, and enhanced verbal performance. So if you're breathing in your right nostril, and then through the airflow through the left nostril is associated with increased right brain activity and enhanced spatial performance. Breathing through the nose also limits the air intake and forces one to slow down. Proper nose breathing reduces hypertension and stress for most people, a kind of like a speed control on the car. So you can go in and out through. This is what this lady, she came up and she gave us some exercises that she does. One of them is in and out. In through your nose, that nostril, out through that nostril. In through that other nostril, through your right nostril and out through your left. In through your left, out through your right. Out through. Now, she said don't do this at night because it wakes you up. So this helps. Helps fight infection. When you breathe in and out through your nose, the air is warm, moistened condition and mixed with nitric oxide, which does 2 important functions. It kills deadly bacteria and works as a vasodilator on the airways in your arteries and capillaries. I remember reading in this book where Patrick McKeon, he said he was in London and this was right when when COVID came out and people didn't know what was this all about, and he knew he lived in Ireland and he had to get home to Ireland. So he's travelling through and there was people everywhere, and the way that you avoid taking in and to help fight infection, keep your mouth shut. Breathe through your nose. So he kept his mouth shut, he breathed through his nose and he didn't pick up anything. So if we're somewhere and we realise we could pick up something, keep your mouth shut, breathe through your nose, because your nose is actually built to kill deadly bacteria and works as a vasodilator. It works for that. That's what it's meant for, to stop you from taking in all these germs and these bacteria. It weakens your lungs, heart, and more. Mouth breathing exacerbates asthma, high blood pressure, heart reduces blood circulation, slows down your brain and reflexes, and even causes spells of dizziness. And it goes on. I've just got the yellow down the right. You may develop arrhythmias and other heart ailments. An invitation to snoring or sleep apnea. And so what it is, a lot of people when they're getting older have got sleep apnea, especially if they've got a little bit of weight that they're carrying. Why? It's got to do with breathing through their mouth. It says down the bottom, it says 30% of people who suffer from sleep apnea can be helped just by breathing through their noses. Now, I don't know. I have no idea if you've got a sleep apnea machine. I don't know if you can just switch it off and start breathing through your nose. I have no idea. You've got to do that research yourself. So I'm not saying to do it, but I'm just reading what they're saying. That you can improve your habits, or you don't have to have sleep apnea. And you know what? People who've got it, they say it's just a terrible bother to have this sleep apnea machine on them. Has anybody here got it? Great. Constricts blood vessels. Breathing too much causes reduced blood flow throughout the body, including the brain, which can cause a feeling of dizziness or lightheadedness. So diameter of sub-blood vessels reduced in some individuals by up to 50%. This shows how overbreathing can affect blood flow. Habitual mouth breathing results in fatigue, poor concentration, reduced productivity, and a bad mood. It can cause smooth muscles of the airways to constrict, resulting in wheezing, breathlessness, and tight chestness and cough. Now, how do we mouth breathe at night? I'm going to say to you that you can actually tape your mouth shut and you won't die. And it's a frightful thing when you're thinking, oh, if I shut my mouth, how can I breathe at night, you know? You drop dead, well, you start breathing through your nose. So I'm suggesting I'll show you how to do it in a minute. You keep your mouth shut during the sleep by using a pillow under a child's mouth. Now that can be helpful for some of the small children. Use a micropore paper tape over your mouth, or you can buy special tapes that are designed for breathing in your mouth. You can also buy what you call a chin strap, which I thought I would, and I hate it. I'll never use it. Yeah, you felt, in the night time you got this strap put around there, and I couldn't use it. I didn't even last a night. I took it off. It wasn't that expensive, so it wasn't the worst thing in my life, but I think it cost only like $14 or something like that, but I wouldn't be interested. I much prefer the paper tape. Use a micropore paper tape. That's if you haven't got anything else. You don't use a duct tape. But you practice wearing it for about 15 to 20 minutes during the day to get used to it. Now, this is the way I put mine on, although some people do put it on like on the right-hand side. I actually put mine going straight down like that. And what I do on it, and I've just shown you what I do, I just tear off a little piece like that, and I've just put a little piece of yellow colouring on that picture, that I've stuck a little bit of micropore tape down, because you put that here, but I hate the stickiness of my lips. Now, if you like the stickiness, don't have to do it this way, but I just put that, and I put it down so my lips don't have sticky on them. But more things about this, more exercises. Patrick McKeon says he instructs top athletes to train through their mouths clothed and breathe through their noses and achieve better results, exception swimming. Okay, and high altitude training is also covered as a number of specific exercises. So Patrick McKeon is called all the time to train people in breathing exercises, and this is how he does. So when you're getting an athlete, he says he always trains his athlete to keep their mouths shut while they're doing their exercises. And we've done this as we used to go for a walk. We'd keep our mouths shut and see how many steps we can go before you breathe in again. I don't necessarily pinch my nose when I'm walking. I just hold my breath, and I just walk for how many steps. You can do that. Okay, how to prove concentration, calm breathing or calm mind. Exhale as normal through your nose. Pinch your nose with your fingers. Hold it for 2 to 5 seconds. Breathe normally through the nose for 10. Repeat the first 3 steps for 3 to 5 minutes and repeat 5 to 10 times daily. So here we have. So that's like 5 in, 5 out, and hold for 5, or hold for 2. Now, it's interesting because the summary of the weight loss program is you need to permanently breathe through the nose day and night. Wear paper tape over the mouth during your sleep. I don't know about what they're saying when you want to talk. Practice breathing light. Or maybe that would be a time when you can use your chin strap. I just know I hated it at night time. Practice breathing light, a specific exercise for 10 to 15 minutes, 5 times a day. And I find it so hard. Look, I'm telling you this, and you're all going to get excited, and I say, I'd love to do this. But if you're like me, one of the hardest things that you're going to do is to change your breathing rate. It just doesn't happen. So number one, the first thing I'm doing is practicing sticking my mouth shut at night time. That's the first thing I'm doing. Plus I'm doing little increments of it. Okay, even if you do it for 2 or 3 minutes, doing this slow breathing, it's better than not doing it at all. So I'm hoping that I'm going to build up. I've just sort of got back into it. I used to do it more, but I got out of it over the last months, 6 months, but I'm starting again. I want to get back into it again and start doing this and start breathing through and just have a period of time where you're just breathing in. And sometimes I find it easier, like the 5.5 seconds in, 5.5 seconds out. I actually find it easier to go 6 seconds in and 6 seconds out because I can time that easier on my watch. But you need to practice this. Be careful what you do, with what you are eating. Oh, that's for weight loss, okay? Mouth breathing versus nose breathing. So there is a difference in. They said, and this lady, she just says, I am so hooked to it. She says, I know the difference, what I've done and what I'm changing in my whole her lifestyle. Now, functional breathing breathes light, deep, and slow. And through your nose. And they said that mouth breathing acidifies your blood. Mouth breathing depletes blood carbon dioxide. This can cause the blood pH to increase, leading to respiratory alkalosis. Respiratory alkalosis means the blood is too alkaline. Its symptom is you have problems with your nervous system, your physical and mental states, problems with the musculoskeletal systems, poor oxygenation of tissues and organs, increased pain perception, constriction of the blood vessels, development of myofascial trigger points. Okay, each of these symptoms on its own can change the normal motor control of skeletal muscles. After injury, the poor oxygenation associated with mouth breathing has implications for recovery. While transient hypoxia is essential for the formation of muscle tissue and the stimulation of muscle cells, prolonged hypoxia is detrimental to muscle repair. The body needs oxygen to repair. And I spoke this about before, your right and your left nasal breathing. And this is here, our bodies. And what happens, our bodies pivot naturally during the day, because sometimes during the day you will be breathing through your right nostril and sometimes during your left nostril. Now there's another one that you can do, alternate nostril breathing for 4.4. This is 4. Okay? Now this next one is box breathing. This is one that the Navy SEALs do as part of their training. Because this calms people down. They inhale for a count of 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold for 4. And repeat at least 6 rounds. And not hard to do. So that's 4. That's 8 seconds in, or 8. It takes 16 seconds. So you would be only doing about 4 per minute. Now this one is very interesting because this lady said this is the one that she teaches lots. 4, 7, 8. You count in for 4. You breathe in through your nose for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then you hold for 7. And then you go out, and as you breathe out, and this one that they said you can actually whoosh it out through your mouth. So you bring it in. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Don't breathe it out too quick. But out for 8. So in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8. And sometimes when you start these, actually you can get dizzy in the head when you're doing these too. Okay, this reduces stress and calms nervous system. Now you look at this one here. This first intake, you're breathing in, and you're not breathing out, but you add an additional sniff in. And then you breathe out slowly. That reduces stress and calms your nervous system. Now this next one is where you hum. Nitric oxide is powerhouse molecule, remember, to widen capillaries, increases oxygenation and releases smooth muscle. Humming releases nitric oxide in the nasal passages 15-fold. So you need to hum it. So practice for at least 5 minutes a day. Okay, 1 minute 3 times a day. 1 minute 6 breaths. This is another. This is 5.5 in, 5.5 out. I'm just going to go through. You'll just see. I'm not going to read them all. This one here is 5 in, 5 out. This one is 3, 4, 5, and it manages anxiety and stress. This actually, remember, this is in an article in one of my newsletters. I think it was number 79. Walking breath hold exercise. And I've done this often as I'm walking. I hold my breath when I'm walking. Remember, don't do it while you're swimming. This one here, high intermittent training, intermittent hypoxic training. This one is involves cycles of breathing low oxygen air alternating with normal or high oxygen air. Okay, the technique is sit or lie down in a safe, comfortable environment. Exhale fully, hold your breath, hold, and then take a breath in, hold 10 to 15 times. Look, I'm sorry I haven't got time to go through all them because I just wanted to finish on this section here. Now, I don't know if some of you heard of Wim Hof. Wim Hof is a man who teaches, it's seemingly a very contradictive way of breathing because he hyperventilates and sometimes he even breathes in through his mouth. And yet he's broken a number of world records related to cold exposure. He's climbed Mount Kilimanjaro in shorts, run a half marathon above the Arctic Circle on his bare feet, stood in a container filled with ice cubes for more than 112 minutes. He can hold his breath phenomenally, and he swims under the ice. He's a Dutchman, and he goes in, and they've got a hole for the ice, and he swims down there, and he puts a rope on his leg so he can find his way back to the hole. But he's swimming in underneath the ice, and he can handle it. Why? Because he's got himself. Okay, he hyperventilates. This is seemingly contradiction. But when you follow it through, you realise that, and this lady I told you about, she was in the class, she does this Wim Hof briefly, because this is only a short second. Just to do this session, it's only going to maybe take you 10 minutes or so. But what are you going to do the rest, or even if at the most it's going to take you 30 minutes, what are you going to do the rest of the 23 and a half hours in the day? That's when you got to breathe the other way. This is only like a short term. Okay, so what about people who do deep breathing, hyperventilating through their mouth? He answers, short-term overbreathing, it doesn't do harm to anyone. But how are you breathing for the rest of the day? And they call this tamo, okay? While seated or lying down, take 30 or 40 fully conscious breaths. Breathe in through the belly and chest and then let it go with force. So what you're doing, and you need to really be lying or sitting down to do this because you will feel dizzy. But you go forcefully. And, already I don't want to do too many because I can feel dizzy. But you go in and out, and I've done this often, and you go in and out maybe 30, 40 times, and after you finish, let's say the 30th time, you breathe out and you pinch your nose shut. And you count how many seconds you can hold your breath for. Now, normally, I've been lucky to hold my breath for 30 seconds. Honestly, I can't hold my breath at all. But, when I do this, after the second or third time, I've held my breath for 3 minutes. And I thought, this is amazing. This is like, I can't believe it. But what you do, after you do this, you hold your breath. You go breathe in and out. Hold your breath. After your 30 seconds or your 30 or 40 breaths, then you breathe one deep breath in and hold it, and you squeeze it everywhere you can squeeze in your body. You know, like you pretend you're squeezing it up into your brain and everywhere. You're constricting everything in your body. You're squeezing everything. Okay? And then after you relax, then you relax. Okay? Then you just relax for a little while, and then you repeat that whole sequence again 2 or 3 times. What does this do to you? Well, the Wim Hof proponents say it is the best. One person said they got rid of their psoriasis. And now they get anything, all of these things you can do if you start getting into breathing. He said it's a way to get warm. You sit down and inhale slowly, deeply, 5 or 6 times, letting your breath go naturally. Inhale. This is his way to get warm. But this here is these Wim Hof techniques: increased immunity, better sleep, increased energy, reduces stress, heightened focus and determination, increased willpower, banishes early morning tiredness. He said it's the real hangover cure. You heal faster. The amount of oxygen deficit and oxygen debt removes it. Warms yourself up. And this is the point. He gets himself so warm he can take off his clothes and run through up Mount Kilimanjaro just in his shorts and bare feet. And he's running past all these people who got all their snow gear on and their parkas on, and he's just got his shorts on. And he's not feeling the cold. Improves your athletic performance. Proactively fights off basic sickness, boosts your energy levels, improves focus and mental clarity, and controls your stress responses. Develops greater patience. Improves your ability to float. By the way, this is the way that the deep sea divers, you know those people who want to dive really deep in the ocean, and they dive and they're down in the deep sea, they're getting pearls or they're looking for whatever down there. They can go deep, they can hyperventilate, and then they know and they get used to it. And then they can go dive in, they can swim. And I met a guy who was doing this once, and he said he could do it, but he said to get really quickly, you have big flippers, huge flippers that he uses. He does that. And so they go down deep in the ground, in the ocean, and then they come up. And that's how they can do it. They know that they can last underwater for maybe 5, 6, 7 minutes because they're so used to it. They know how to do it. There are countless ways to breathe, to relax, to study or concentrate, and to warm up. Warm up is the Wim Hof way. So, what it is, we can say there are many new things we can learn, but try a different breathing technique. Now, I found this just so interesting because when I read those books, I thought I knew about breathing. I thought you just got to breathe in. I did. And I didn't know it because I didn't know about over-breathing. I'd never heard about it. Yes, I'd heard that we should slow down our breaths. I'd heard that people who have got depression should be trying to breathe even. I've tried. You can breathe 3 times a minute if you want to. It's not terribly hard. But even 6 times a minute is not hard. Just 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out. That's 10 seconds for one complete breath cycle, and 6 times 10, 6 is 60. So it's not hard. 5 in, 5 out. But remember, I do it through my nose and out through my nose. And sometimes you can do the 4, 4, 4, 4. Hold for 4, and out for 4, hold for 4. And it's just quite simple. Once you get into a regularity, and apparently you can even get apps on the phone that just bing, bing, they just rings when you've got to go in and out. So you can learn to do it. But I believe that this actually is a lot deeper than we actually think, because how many of us are over-breathing, and I think that this is contributing a lot to our fogginess of our brain. Many people, as I said, and those people who And I'm just relating it to those people that I've talked to who are doing this breathing, and they're doing it, and they said, oh, their clarity and their mental clarity is great. So that's food for thought for everyone. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I really, as I said, this has just been a favourite subject of mine. I know I'm sorry that I hurried that. I went through it a little bit faster than I should have, but I wanted to get through because I could see that the lunch is ready, and it just puts us behind all the time. So we'll close now. But before we close, let's just have a prayer, and we will just ask for a blessing on the food. Heavenly Father, we thank you for these lessons that you've taught us. We just pray now that you'd give us the grace to follow this information through and help us to learn to choose wisely when we're eating food and to breathe properly. Lord, you know you're going to be the one who has to change us. So we pray for this now, but we especially ask now also for a blessing on this food because, Lord, we know that we need you to bless it so it can strengthen and nourish us and give us good health. So we pray for this in Jesus' name. Amen.